we had sort of had just a little bit of a staggering introduction to biomolecules, and staggering through that. And then in that hierarchy of life, the bottom of it started with atoms. What was after that? Molecules.
Cell.
Yeah, before cells, I had said organelles. Yeah, organelles, cells, and what do cells make? Tissues, yeah, and we're going to go through the tissue types, and then tissues make up organs, organs make up organs. But the next thing up the ladder are cells. And so here's just an example of a cell. And what you're looking at here is, does anyone know what this is? Does anyone know what they're looking at? The wild stab. Huh? Salt?
Bacteria.
You are looking at some bacteria. Yeah, this would be a bacteria. So this length here is about 20 microns. Yeah, here we go. No, 2 microns. So 2 microns is 1/500th of a millimeter. You've seen a millimeter, right? And imagine cutting that up to 500 pieces. And that would be about this long. So these little balls that you see here, Aaron's right, these are bacteria, or whoever said that. Oh yeah, that's a microscope. In fact, that is probably taken with an electron microscope of some sort. But this bigger, crazy thing that you see here, this creature from outer space, that is what's called a macrophage. It's a white blood cell, and it is attacking these bacteria. These little filaments that are coming out off of it are its arms, and it's constantly moving and reaching out with these arms. This is the outer membrane of the cell. We think of cells as like, you see cells and they draw them as like circular blobs. Not all cells are like that. This is a cell. It has this very convoluted architecture here. For a cell to be able to do that kind of thing, right? We think of cells as we're just a body and have cells that are packed together. But this cell is pretty independently operational. For that to happen, there's an extremely complex set of molecular machinery, like genuine machinery, mechanism, motor protein, tracks, suspension wires that are constantly being reorganized, apart, and rebuilt, that are trafficking stuff around the cell. Yeah. Motor proteins are just what they sound like. They're a protein that acts like a motor. You attach something to a motor protein, it runs on a track and drags the thing that it attaches to along that. That's how things get sorted out. Yeah. So all sorts of proteins are different machinery. That lecture last time, I was trying to build up to protein structure and what all that is, but I'm leaving it. All of that talk was about like 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional structure of proteins, and then the different types of activities that they engage in, motion and motor, and different chemical reactions they catalyze. But the point was to get us to this, where those complex proteins, and so for example with carbohydrates, right? It's not just proteins. Carbohydrates are, everyone thinks about carbohydrates as energy. In fact, carbohydrates are the structurally most complex molecular library known to humans in the universe currently, and there are some pretty staggering numbers about the types of structural diversity that exist in carbohydrates, and because of that, they act like the QR codes or the UPC codes of the molecular world of the cell. They're able, because a protein has a particular complex sugar attached to it, it's like an address label that'll send a protein to one place or another in the cell. There's like super complex molecular sorting that happens within the context of the cell. It's through the combined integration of the functions of lipids that are controlling the membrane dynamics. So all these membranes here are made of different types of lipids, different types of fats. They're carbohydrates that are acting as, importantly, in terms of cell sorting, proteins that are the actual machines that do all this stuff, structural proteins, the proteins that act in terms of catalysis, or catalysis means they're just encouraging different specific types of reactions to happen in the cell. Those are the proteins. And then, of course, the nucleic acids are in the center of the cell. And they have the plans for the building of all of these proteins. So those are the biomolecules, and they lead to something unbelievably complex, like a macrophage, right? These are white blood cells that are basically all throughout your body, and they're dealing with this kind of shit all the time. Yes, sir. That's what we're looking at, a macrophage right there, yeah. Macro meaning, so I'll write here. Macrophage. Macro meaning large, and phage meaning eater, large eater. Like your esophagus, that SOPHAGOUS or whatever. The true PHAG eating tube. The true eating tube is your esophagus. Yeah, large eater, big eater. It's the big eating machine of the cellular world, because it's just like gonna take out some bacteria. Yeah. Well, okay. We are going on a tangent here. Not a tangent, but some stuff I've skipped over. But what happens is it's going to, there are molecular cues. There's molecules that decorate the surface of a bacteria. And the macrophage recognizes those cues as not being self, right? It says, oh, there's something on this that doesn't belong here. So I'm going to take these arms and I'm going to surround it. I'm going to engulf it, surround it in a membrane layer. It's going to take some of its membrane and surround it, and then engulf it. It's going to go into the cell. And then this vesicle that has the bacteria in it is going to fuse with another vesicle. This is, now we're imagining being inside the cell. There's a vesicle called a lysosome. This is an organelle. A lysosome is an organelle that lys, L-Y-S-E, means to cut. And osome just means vesicle, or like a little bubble, a membrane enclosed bubble inside of a cell. Yeah, your like secure containment protocol stuff you were talking about is like these cells have like been working on this for millions of years, and that's exactly what it's doing. It's taking some kind of bacteria, some sort of anomaly inside the bodily environment, something that doesn't belong there, and poses a threat, and it's going to surround it and then send it to a lysosome, which lysosomes, and there's other ones, there's peroxisome. They have, pardon me. Thank you, I feel blessed. They have acids and enzymes in the lysosomes that like basically tear anything. They'll cut stuff up. Peroxisomes have peroxides in them that do the same thing, that like oxidize stuff and basically kill these bacteria And so it sends them in there. And then once it chews them up, it takes little chunks of them and whatever. Without going on the big, that's how it works. It absorbs. Yeah.
So what should
the point that I was making, this is a slide that this is the first slide in this series here. I was connecting the fundamental types of biomolecules that I had talked about with the complexity of cellular. So we have very complex cellular functions that are based upon the underlying biomolecules that make up an individual cell. And all the different types of cells we're going to run into in different tissues and different organs and systems. The specific function of the cell, I talked about the structure function
yes.
with Lewis Sullivan. Yeah. That structure function paradigm, the function of a cell is a reflection of the unique structures of the proteins that are being expressed, of the unique structures of the carbohydrates that are being expressed, structures of lipids that are gives us this complexity and diversity in terms of cellular function. These cells then go on to form. So here's a cell. Here's a myocardiocyte, a cardiac muscle cell. Go on to form tissues that they aggregate in community and form different types of tissues. And then a number of tissues come together and form an organ. And then we have these organ systems. I'm going to talk about a number of these organ systems. All right? And that's where I wanted us to get to. So I was skipping a lot of the cell physiology because I assumed that was in biology, where you would learn about the cell. I'm skipping all of that because it doesn't necessarily belong here. But what we're talking about is based upon that. It is related to it. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go through each of the organ systems and give you an overview, just an introduction, and then the rest of the semester we're going to walk our way through each. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to list the organ systems and some basic properties of them, and then we're going to consider as many of them as we have time for.
How many?
Huh? I don't know, like a dozen or so. What is that? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Yeah. 11. So the first is the integument. The integumentary system is predominantly made up of your skin, but it also has hair, sweat glands, and the nails are these sort of accessory structures. System. So it is the largest system in the body. It's one of the most overlooked and taken for granted in that you just your skin feels nice. You don't really think about it, but it is your first line of defense against the world outside. It protects you from constant assault from all sorts of pathogens, meaning bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites, and prions. Those are the 5 big categories of pathogens. Talking about disease. A pathogen, let me define that word here, pathogen, if you don't know it. Pathogen, path, meaning sad face, something that's wrong, or disease state. You're pathos is a person with a lot of pathos is a person who has a lot of struggle and is confronting, like on stage when you see a theater production, you see, oh, that person has amazing pathos, or a singer in a band, or what pathos. It's a person who is like really examining their mental or emotional struggles. Pathos, meaning, right? And gen, giving birth to, or beginning, not beginning. So a pathogen is something that causes. All right. Yeah, it protects against environmental hazards, not just pathogens. It protects against chemicals. It protects against UV radiation. But beyond that, it's also the warm coat that the body wears. It's the coat that keeps you warm. So it helps you regulate body temperature. Not just warm, but it helps cool you down. How does your skin help cool you down? You sweat. That's it. Yeah, I said sweat glands. And then lastly, it gives you information. It collects information about the world that you live in. Right? So the integumentary system. Collection of organs that are working together to provide these functions. Skeletal system. So the skeletal system is made up of the supporting connective, specifically the bones and cartilage, any of the ligaments that hold the bones and cartilages together. And then there is something called marrow on the inside of gives you support, protection. Bones protect the brain, for example. But beyond that, the bones are where your body stores the important element of calcium. When we did the ionomics, when we looked at all the elements that made up a human body, I asked you what are the elements, and one of the ones that you came up with was calcium. Calcium is very important. And it's stored, the storage of calcium happens in the skeletal system. I'm going to introduce a concept called homeostasis next time we have lecture, and then I'm going to give you an example of homeostasis in action, and specifically in calcium homeostasis and the role the skeletal system plays, and how that plays into different diseases. There's a lot you can tell about disease just by looking at calcium. And lastly, the red marrow. So there's red and yellow marrow. We'll get into that later. But red bone marrow is one of the places in the body that we have erythro. Red poiesis generates birth. So we get the formation of blood cells, new red blood cells. The red bone. Questions on that? Muscular system. So there are three types of muscle cells in the body: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac muscle. The muscular system is only skeletal muscle. All right, only skeletal muscles are part of the muscular. Yeah. Okay. And there are associated tendons. So really what a muscle is this long network of connective tissue that has muscle cells invested in it, and tendons are just the ends of the muscle where the muscle tissue runs out and you still have that connective tissue sheath, and it comes together as the attachment points for that muscle. But we'll see that when we go through the muscular system. They provide movement. Obviously, that's the obvious one, but they also provide protection. So, for example, I used to work when I was 17, I I had a job working in, maybe 8, and I had a job working at the Majestic Theater in Detroit, cleaning the bowling pins, cleaning up the room after gigs and whatever. And this was the theater that Harry Houdini sustained the fatal blow in. So Harry Houdini had this thing. You could come up to him and punch him in the stomach. He could take any punch in the stomach and whatever. You could punch him in the stomach, you would get something. And he, like, people did it forever and ever, and he was always able to prepare. But in the Majestic, someone in the dressing room tapped him on the shoulder and he turned around before he was prepared. And the guy just socked him right in the stomach and hit him so hard that it actually ruptured his spleen, and he died. He died later that day in the hospital. It was so severe. But prior to that, he was able to take pretty much any. I don't know the end of the story.
Yeah. I know that was.
I don't know the answer. You can find out. Report
What's
back.
name?
Harry Houdini.
Okay.
You guys not heard of Harry Houdini before? The escape artist. Yeah, one of the world's greatest musicians or magicians. Anyways, yeah. So it was the rectus abdominis muscles that protected his abdominal contents. When he was able to contract them, it was able to protect them. Other examples, the orbicularis oculi protects your eyes. The orbicularis oris protects your mouth. Muscles provide protection and support for other tissues. And then, importantly, muscles can generate heat. So what happens when you go outside in the middle of the winter with nothing but a t-shirt? You get cold, you may die.
And you start.
And that's your body trying to generate heat. The muscle. What's that? Eventually you'll get hypothermia. But to prevent that, initially your body starts to shake like this. You know you're getting hypothermia when you stop. The body gives up. And then the core temperature drops.
Wait, 3 more on.
3 types of muscle tissue. Yeah.
And then this, the muscular.
That's right. All right, the nervous system. The nervous system is made up, in terms of the organs, it's the central and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord, and then the peripheral nervous system is made up of the peripheral nerves and sensory organs. As a part of this, there is non-neuronal cells that are part of this that we'll learn about when we talk about the nervous system, called glial cells. That they're not neurons, they are supporting cells, the glial cells, that are also part of the nervous system. Last week when I was gone, I was actually visiting a friend of mine who is most likely never see again, who's dying from a form of brain cancer called astrocytoma. Astrocytes are star-shaped cells that are glial cells. It's a type of glial cell in the brain. But so these are the organs that are made up of neurons, but also these supporting cells that we'll learn about when we get to that unit. So the central nervous system functionally is able to direct immediate response, and we'll expand upon that concept later. And it can coordinate and moderate the activities of other organ systems. So it's really the one way you can think about the human being is we are just this giant, crazy, slimy alien worm thing. This giant, like, worm with all these whip-like extensions that's living in this like life support suit, which is the rest of the body. Yeah, flesh coat. But humans really are what the substance of your existence. You think, what you feel, response, stimuli, all of that is this system. Our sense of being resides here. So it's collecting information from the world around it, interpreting it, and then it's responding to the nervous system.
This is, but we brain transplant.
Oh, geez.
How would that?
Brain transplant. What? I don't know what that means.
Like.
So you mean
is that?
What are we talking about?
Okay.
Are we talking about?
So.
Here Mars is,
yes.
And sadly, let's make it. Let's make it somebody. Terry. Terry is brain dead, and so we're going to find a donor to stick a brain in Terry, or is Terry's body mutilated? His brain's fine. His brain. Because my point is, you are your.
Right. So no matter. So if to Terry, say your body, their brain, working body, brain dead. We just switch the brain. But now, would that person now be?
The person would be Terry, although they look.
Holy.
Yeah. Like you take my brain and stick it in Lance. You see Lance, you would actually be interacting.
Whoa. That's fun.
Yeah. So like,
we should just do that.
Get Out.
Is that what Get Out is?
Have you seen that movie? You really need to.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. No doubt about that.
So you wouldn't be full on.
But you would have the memories of Terry. You would have the experience of Terry.
But not the physical. Isn't there like two types of?
You
Yeah, like muscle memory.
Right.
When you take the brain out, does that mean you're cutting?
Well, I don't know.
Spinal cord? Does it mean you're bringing the entire nervous system, or are you bringing all the peripheral? Because that like somatic memory that you're talking about, it still lives here. No, of course.
Oh, what? It wasn't a real movie? It wasn't like based on
a document.
So okay.
Just pull
but
it.
Okay, Terry is violent, but Bob did. So we take Bob's body. Would Bob's body with
assuming that his brain has a one-to-one mapping on Bob's body. Yes. Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. Your ability to sing, dance, move, ride a bike, play an instrument,
it's all in here.
Lives in the nervous system. Yeah, it lives in the nervous system.
So does it live? Well, then. So.
It's because the brain is controlling.
Right, but I mean, then why do they say like muscle?
Yeah.
It's just really nervous memory.
Muscle memory exists in the cerebellum. Is where it is.
So our body it doesn't retain it. It just keeps us going. It doesn't retain any information.
Your body is a tool and a support structure for the nerve.
So cool.
Like,
so what?
If you think about it, wouldn't it be weird? It tastes weird.
Yeah, well, don't think about that. That's not the most important thing.
I don't know, man. It's like teenagers. You guys have made out before, right? I mean, isn't that what that is?
Not what? Okay, well now I'm going full sci-fi.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, say that we just took the nerve right out of the right, and it's just the nerve, right?
Yeah.
And we have it contained in something.
Yeah, it's like City of Lost Children, right?
So-
it's also in June.
Well, I have no, but it's just sitting and that's it. Do we still be able to consciously think in that space? When you don't have eyes, and you don't have a mouth, you don't have a body, you don't have anything, you're just nerves and a brain.
So nerves include sense organs, so you would be able to see because eyes have nerves in them.
Okay, so our
Yeah.
eyes are.
Your eyes are complex, yeah, but your eyes are complex sensory. But one of what's called a special. But have you ever meditated? Yeah. When you meditate, the first thing you do is there's different types of meditation, but in the type of yoga you start by casting your attention to like the furthest thing, and then you draw this sphere. First, you're like, of the building. Remove that papers thing. Remove that, and I go inward. My breath, my heartbeat. Remove that, and I go inward. You begin to peel off who I think I am. Tom Klepak. So what? What does that mean? Name. It could be any name. Begin to take that. This life and a family. That is more that and all of the details, the ego, think you are associated. Pull all this stuff away, and you keep following the line inward to a place of pure awareness where you're not embedded in the flow of time. You kind of step outside the timeline. It's just experience, sensating. There's awareness, right? And so that is the sort of fundamental of proto-consciousness that else is built on top of all of the yourself. That fundamental attached.
Where they don't, all they're doing is receiving. Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, I think they call that. Anyways, we could obviously devote. Yeah, it would. Maybe I'll take maybe that's a turn I'll take when we get to for now, let's keep moving. Any other curiosity I need to well, happy to. The endocrine system is a really good working system to follow up the nervous system with because it's also a control system, but it's a chemical. So it's a bit of a hard organ system for students to wrap their mind around because it's not spatially clustered, right? Like the skeletal system is very tangible. The muscular system is very tangible. The integument is very the endocrine system, it's these tissues, these little organs that are not spatially related. They're distributed throughout the body. And their job is, so the organs that make them up are the pituitary gland, also called the hypophysis, which is sort of like the top of the pyramid. The pituitary gland is the one that controls a lot of the other, all these other endocrine organs are really under the control of the pituitary gland. And you have like the thyroid gland, which is right here, and the throat. The pituitary gland.
That one.
It's close to your third eye. The third eye, I think, the title of third eye really belongs to the pineal gland, which is on the posterior aspect of the brainstem, whereas pituitary is posterior. Okay, yeah, maybe I should give that. But so for when I can give you just a posterior. And so like we're looking at the anterior surface. If I flipped her around 180, and anything along this close to the midline is called medial, and anything moving away from it is moving lateral. And then anything heading in this direction is called superior. And anything heading in the opposite direction is called inferior. I'm just giving you those definitions. GPS. If I want to know exactly where you were, exactly. Longitude and latitude. Yep. The one other thing that I would need to know exactly where he is, yeah, what? Yeah, what do we call that? Elevation.
Elevation.
Yeah, because we live in the third dimension, right? Spatially, we live in three spatial dimensions: longitude, latitude, and elevation. So in the body, to say exactly where something is, there are three different spatial axes. There's posterior and anterior, which is front to back. There's up and down, which is superior and inferior. And because humans are biaxially symmetric, meaning there's a twofold axis here. We're symmetric. It goes medial to lateral, right and left.
But that doesn't have.
I just use the word posterior because those are the ways. That's right. Medial is at the midline.
Oh.
So your nose is medial. Your right eye is lateral, as is your left eye. Both of the eyes are lateral. The midline. There are some other terms. Should I pull that slide up? We're going on. It is actually kind of. In the what?
Never mind.
The body can be broken up into two parts. There's the axial and appendicular body. The axial body is right here on this person. Axial, because it's along the central axis. And then the appendicular body are your appendages. So this is this person's appendage. It's basically your torso and head. It's the part of the body that is directly attached to the central axis. Yeah. Well, maybe not. I'm probably not going to test explicitly this. I'm just going to telling you these words so that when I use them, you'll know them. I might as well tell them all to you.
Yes.
To all now. Yeah, Sam. Oh, the endocrine system? Yeah, I haven't even gotten to that really yet. I was just he asked me about the third eye. I said the pineal gland is posterior to the brainstem, whereas the pineal gland is, or I'm sorry, pineal gland is posterior. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So the axial is
It's called the appendicular. It's because it has the appendages, your appendages. And within the axial skeleton, there are two other words that some other words you're gonna hear. There's ventral and dorsal. Ventral meaning ventilation, like the lung side. That's the same as anterior, but it's only ventral is equivalent to anterior, and dorsal or dorsum meaning back is equivalent to posterior. But that's only in the axial body. In the appendicular body, we have two other words called proximal and distal. And these are relative terms. So, for example, from where I'm standing, Mars is proximal. She is further away. And so, like, for example, your wrist is distal compared to your elbow, right? Because this is further away from the midline or from the body than the elbow. Proximal. Whatever. Those are some words that you'll hear me use. On to the endocrine system. Yeah. So the job of the endocrine is chemical. Instead of electrical signaling through nerves, it's chemical. And it's slower response. It's typically longer term changes, developmental changes, chemical changes. So it can adjust your metabolic activity and how easily or slowly you utilize energy. And it directs development. It's really the chemical control system. Move on. All right. So that took longer than I anticipated.
So
But,
just
yeah.
So is this a system that's it says like develop? Is that like puberty?
Yeah, well, it means everything from conception,
Okay.
from conception to death, right? So that's development. Changes that your body. Puberty is just fun. Yeah, man, puberty's great.
that's when you start getting.
Yeah, it's like feelings, like good feelings, bad feelings, life new and exciting. That's right. Sometimes many blips. Puberty's fun, man. I'll tell you what, puberty is a lot more fun than menopause or like arthritis or.
You don't have to worry about menopause.
Huh?
You don't have to worry about menopause, do you?
I am married. I definitely have to worry about menopause. Sorry. Okay. All right. Next one is pretty straightforward one, the cardiovascular. I think of the cardiovascular system, the logistics support for the body. It's made up of the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. And it's the job of the cardiovascular system is to like circulate all of the chemicals to all the different parts of the body to function. Oxygen, bring oxygen to tissues, bring carbon dioxide away from tissues, bring nutrients to the tissues, bring waste products away from the tissues. And all the other like hormones and chemicals and blood cells that like the white blood cells that are doing what they need to do. It all gets moved around and circulated through the body by the cardiovascular system. So that's the principal function. But the other function that people don't appreciate as much about the cardiovascular system is it helps to regulate body temperature. So water has a tremendous what's called heat capacity. And without going too much back into the chemistry, heat capacity is just the ability of water to hold heat energy. Water has a high heat capacity because of all those hydrogen bonds in between the water molecules. And so because of that, the blood that's in your body stores a lot of the thermal energy of the body. It's part of the reason we're called warm-blooded. There's a huge amount of thermal energy. And your cardiovascular system, by directing the blood to the periphery, you can radiate heat and cool the body off, or you can direct it away from the body, the periphery, into the core and conserve heat, core temperature. So the cardiovascular system has a big role in regulating body by where it's locating the blood in the body. Okay? Yeah.
All of them. A test on it. Basic stuff. Like this is, and then we're gonna go into.
I'm probably going to have to at some point give you a test. I'll probably give you a test after I talk.
Which will.
Yeah, well, it will include any of the concepts that we've been able to talk about thus far. And I mean, I can give you, depends on what you want. Do you like more frequent, smaller tests, or do you like? Because I can give any.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, why don't I finish talking about this, and then we can have a test next week? Maybe.
On just all the systems, or
No, I haven't talked about homeostasis. We'll just be everything we talked about up to this point. Not a huge amount, but a study guide. Maybe your notes should be the best study guide. Depends time I have in topics, but I'm not going to ask you anything. My tests are not tricky. I'm not there to fool you. I ask questions about what I talk about. I try to ask. What would make sure that you understand.
Just want to know.
Sure. Well, I mean, I've talked about, I led with the hierarchy. I mean, I started by talking skills. I tried to get you guys going on projects and that. And actual lecture material, the stuff that the hierarchy of life. We began to talk a little bit, atoms and the body and molecules.
so.
History. I'm probably not going to ask about that. If I do test about that at all, it would be like really fundamental concepts, like asking paradigm. That would be That was, yeah, the architect guy. I don't need you to tell me that it was Louis Sullivan. Would like you to. That's it.